Rahubat Musa. Once again, it's a pleasure to be able to answer your questions. My name is Sir Ken, one of the many student teachers of the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, Parnabab Yanun, who teaches us outformation that becomes information, and we share that with the world to help liberate your mind and to free you mentally, spiritually, and of course, ultimately, to help you go back home from whence you came. Okay, so
Rahubat Yazur.
Today's question.
I would like to give a special thanks to Baba Yanun for fathering many throughout the world and giving us great affirmation and information of very, very needed time in our adversities, and that's solid. I'm Razil Shalah L, also known as Sean. I'm going to try to make this quick as possible. I chose the night in honor of the ancestors, full moon night, October 7, 2025, the harvest moon or super moon, to drop these questions and concerns. If I could say myself, I've been studying since the mid-90s, the teachings of Dr. York. And I had a few encounters with the unseen very young into the teachings. But things really took a spin for me when I started to practice the taful, in which I believe I was contacted more frequently. As we know, there are ways to communicate, like quantum communications. But my question would be, how can you amplify chemical communications? I know Dr. York touched on questions or touched on information dealing with how to amplify the quantum communications, but a lot of beings or the unseen communicate with smell, and it's not really any information that I know of to really gain any information on how to amplify chemical or smell communication, for that matter. That's the first question. The second question.
Okay, so the first question is how to amplify smell and to be able to communicate with ancestors and so forth. And he relate to Taful, which was a prayer system. When you look at you, I keep saying this word, you are an electromagnetic semiconductor. You have to go and do some research on those words, because sometimes words just sound like, what does that mean? But you are a being that is composed of different parts that extend beyond the physical. To simplify it, you are linked to different vibrations on different frequencies on different realms that exist in you, around you, outside you, in fact, outside of the planet Earth, connecting you all the way to the cosmos. Now, that might sound far-fetched to a lot of people, but this comes with you waking up and starting to realize that there is much to what you are surrounded by, which is mainly an illusion. It gives the illusion of things being solid when actually things are just waves and vibration that are held together based on resonance and based on density. Like, if you exist in a particular form, you're going to be related or attracted to those things in that form. But there are different parts to you. So we explain by way of Wu-Sabat that there are higher realms and there are lower realms, and you are in between. The lower realms are so low in vibration that they actually can be very demonic. They can be, because of their low vibration. It's just like if you use intelligence as a measurement. People who are less intelligent, primitive in terms of they don't know certain things. Like if you go back to the beings that were in the caves and didn't have technology and didn't have certain things, the way they thought and how they did things is not going to be the same as those beings of higher intelligence. So the higher intelligent beings, they are on a higher level of vibration. They've mastered the lower vibrations. So they don't particularly need a physical body, because when you start to break down what your physical body is, as in your skin suit, it's the bacteria that is attracted to the essence of you, which is pure. And it's like the pure being attracts the elements which surround that being. It's like if you had a magnet and the magnet was so powerful and it was in a position, you see that other things will gravitate towards it or be attracted or pulled towards that thing. This is what happens when you're pure energy, nice energy, a good vibration, you know, and your pure soul, and you attract things. This is why anything you want, you really can attract it, as opposed to chasing it or trying to go towards to get it. It will come to you. So I'm saying that to say, you are able to communicate with beings on all these levels, depending on your resonance, depending on how you vibrate. Everybody has an energy field around them, okay? And this is why when it comes to attracting what you want, it's literally based on what you give off or what you are, you see. So you can communicate with and talk to beings. I have to use the word beings because when we say person, there's a kind of a energy that goes with that. Even the tones and the words we use are part of that restriction. All right. This is why we always say speak positivity, and you will receive positivity. But let's just answer the question again. Or so I say, let me just listen to the question again.
Rahubat Yazur. I would like to give a special thanks to Baba Yanun for fathering many throughout the world and giving us great affirmation and information of very, very needed time in our adversities, and that's solid. I'm Razil Shalah L, also known as Sean. I'm going to try to make this quick as possible. I chose the night in honor of the ancestors, full moon night, October 7, 2025, the harvest moon or super moon, to drop these questions and concerns. If I could say myself, I've been studying since the mid-90s, the teachings of Dr. York. And I had a few encounters with the unseen very young into the teachings, but things really took a spin for me when I started to practice the tafu, in which I believe I was contacted more frequently. As we know, there are ways to communicate, like quantum communications, but my question would be, how can you amplify chemical communications? I know Dr. York touched on questions or touched on information dealing with how to amplify the quantum communications, but a lot of beings or the unseen communicate with smell, and it's not really any information that I know of to really gain any information on how to amplify chemical or smell communication, for that matter. That's the first question.
Yeah, so the bit I missed out was so what I said, it's all relating to when you activate and you remember you have something called, or you had, or we had something called a barothry gland. And because of it being removed, we now have only one, which is touch, right? And in terms of what he's saying about, what the brother is saying about the smell, because everything is based on touch, you, your nose, something has to touch your nose for you to smell, like something has to touch your tongue for you to taste, and something, well, sound waves have to hit your ear for you to hear, and light had to hit your retina or your eye and touch it for you to see. All of these are really one, but the other higher senses like your telepathy, intuition, psychometry, and clairvoyance got maimed. But even though they're maimed, you can still heighten them by the practices that you do. And this is where Wu-Sabat comes in terms of you can still use those remnants of what was left over for telepathy, for smell. And so beings that are existing on higher vibrations or come from different environments, they smell a particular way. And anyone who's been around Partner Babianu, the master teacher, will know that he had a particular scent that is none like any other being you've ever come across. Just the same way people in religion talk about the sacred ash, which the master teacher explained to us is incense burning from the higher realms with the crafts like the crystal city, and that comes down there. And I was saying that the different realms and dimensions that you're in tune with means that there are things that could exist in a realm, but just because it's not visible to you with your eye because of the visible light spectrum, you may not perceive that there's things, or there are things there that you can feel or pick up with your higher senses. So yes, when these extra entities or beings or your ancestors that have passed on, they have ways of communicating with you to let you know they're in the presence. This is why when you do the rituals that we teach and show you how to communicate with your ancestors, you can know, for example, if you knew your loved one and they had a particular smell. This is why it's good when smells are very important, because a lot of us have been dumbed down to the point where we don't know what things taste like anymore, because everything tastes the same. So you don't really have a sense of smell anymore. They're making these things harder and harder for you to, but you have to practice and tune into them. So if you were around a loved one that, let's say, had a particular scent, or they wore a particular oil, or perhaps even a perfume, but you know their smell. This is important, like to know people's smells. And the things you eat also give off a scent. And so because you're porous and you eat things, those things literally get broken down into liquids and then burnt in your, what we call your solar plexus or your altar. This is why people say the body is the temple, but you have pores that basically, like I said, you are literally held together by atoms, but everything is spacious and it's energy flowing together, held together by various densities or nutation rates. Anyway, so you have to work on getting your higher senses to be able to, the one you're utilizing is the touch and smell is one of those. So when your loved one, you're communicating with them and they want to know that they're in your presence, you will be able to pick up that smell. And if you're able to, and you're able to utilize what I'm calling clairvoyance, right? The word clairvoyance literally means clear vision. You can personify or see beings in these other realms, or they may be able to personify themselves for you by slowing down their vibration. This is what extraterrestrials do, who are on different dimensions, and then they will come into the dimension, the physical 3D, and then go back out. So people will only see them for a brief moment. Or sometimes entities around you in your room or your house or whatever, you might see them briefly, and you're like, others are able to personify. Now, these beings that are in these other realms, or I term the unseen world, some of them don't have the ability or the power to personify in the physical. Some can move objects and use, this is what I keep saying about you being an electromagnetic semiconductor. They can move things, and some people can practice mind power to the point where they have something called telekinesis, which they can move objects, because it's about energy, harnessing energy, utilizing it to do things, to heal, so some beings, you have to read our doctrine, like Patarak, 30 spirits, soul, spirit, soulmate. There's so many books that we have that go, and of course the one you mentioned, the spiritual you after the physical you dies, to be able to understand this unseen world that exists but in different density, and the world that you see, the physical world, they work together, right? So yes, by putting the practices of Wu-Sabat together, you can learn to enhance those higher senses, so that your smell is going to be better to pick up those beings that are in your environment but on a higher vibration, like your vision, like your intuition. You just know things without processing, you just know. And of course, psychometry, to be able to detect and touch things and know that you can pick up so much information from just touching an item of clothing or whatever. All right. Yeah. So the first thing is change your diet. Start to put into the spiritual practices that we're taught by way of Wu-Sabat, and prepare yourself to be able to tune in to these ancestors and to be able to possibly receive your barothry gland back. All right, let's go on to the second question.
The second question is, if you recall a chapter in the Holy Tablet where you had instructed a specific way of defense when astral projecting or in the mental body against reptilians and other beings that could try to attack the craft while traveling, and also a chapter in the Holy Tablets where in transitioning there's a test that will be given to walk across a path, like an energy path, which is like in the triple darkness. I can't recall or remember what chapter it was, but where you have to complete a certain task in the mental realm or the mental plane, where you cross a Z path to get to the other side where the elders, or may I say seraphim or cherubim, I'm not very sure. That's the second question. Now the third question would be,
okay, let me address that question. It sounds like a few things are being mixed up. The first one is dealing with psychic self-defense, which again relates to your mind and how you're able to using visualization and certain tools and recognizing the power, the magnetic energy field that you have around you, which people refer to as the aura, how to be able to build, and let's call it an invisible shield around you. If you listen to the recording on visualization, we have that actually on the OSM YouTube channel. Listen to what he says, and when you're going to that state. So that's relating to a psychic self-defense, where you're able to, with your mind, build a shield around you by utilizing your aura, and to have a defense. It's like when you watch movies and you see crafts that have a force field. You know, they activate the force field, and if they're being attacked, they can't penetrate that force field. Well, you're able to do the same. And there's a scroll called The Man from Planet Risk, The Science of Creation. There's another one. But these scrolls go into talking about how you do that, how you transform yourself or turn yourself inside out, where you can activate your shield, where you can be amongst people and protect the energies that are coming to you. They just literally bounce off of you, and you can walk into a room. Your energy field can stretch actually meters around you. So sometimes if you know what to do and how to do it, you can literally activate it, and you will see that people can't come within your personal space because you have that shield. All right. I think actually, let me read something from The Man from Planet Risk. My copy is literally one of the versions, the original versions. So it's turned into a papyrus, but there's a section, if I could read, and that relates to the path you were talking about as well. But that's what I say, that it seems like a number of different things are being mixed, and because you don't have the actual reference from the holy tablets, it's a bit difficult to know exactly what you're talking about. But what I did pick up with the path is the Z that you walk in, known as the Sirat, or that becomes the Siratul Mustaqim in Islam, where it's talking about the path. But let me read something. This is from The Man from Planet Risk. I'll start from page 89 because it kind of builds into it. It says, "We are outside of your stars or sun's rays, thus we have no need of them. We split atoms the same way cells split themselves. Our smaller crafts run on Omicron," right? And remember, this book was out years ago before Omicron was even discovered. "A form of energy you don't have as of yet. It's 115 on the element chart. 115 is a theoretical atomic number on the periodic table, which places it well beyond any element known on your planet Earth. Element 115 is a super heavy substance that powers the reactor in extraterrestrial crafts. We have the energy of 1 million atomic bombs called Delta, or the third field, which makes intergalactic travel possible. All right. We have a complex network of paths through black holes to link galaxies to galaxies in hyperspace. We learned long ago to break time barriers by going back to zero time reference. We travel thousands of light years in one Earth day in 1,000 years." And he shows some diagrams and maps. All right. And then this comes to the bit that I think you're referring to. If I put that up, you might be able to see the diagram. This is on page 90, and it says, The crystal city has 365 paths within the main path called the Sirat. This is what I was referring to. On this path, you can see through the floor of the ships. You must stay on this path or you will be electrocuted. Each gate is made up of white pearls with each name in the light of the stone. You can get this in Revelation 21:21 when it describes the crystal city. And the main street was the gold path through the city. And then there's a question. How did you know you could live on the earth? Answer. As I entered your atmosphere, a signal or beam of energy that was directed into the earth broke down the land to what types of bacteria live there, exactly what is in the atmosphere as far as how dense it is, the air pressure and the temperature. It is like sticking a thermometer in a glass of water and getting its temperature. This was all done from the mother plane so that as I incarnate as a well-perfected Sawa man, I would know everything that was needed for the physical composition of a being tailor-made for this environment. But it says, however, the longer I stay, the more I become like an earthling. Once a Riskian is in a physical form of a man, we cannot readily transform back into a Riskian. I'll read a little bit more and then I'll stop there and then take your last questions. However, we do have the power to make you see a replica of a Riskian through hypnotic suggestion and get inside your head and make you see whatever form we want you to see. At this point, your adrenaline starts to flow and you are cut off spiritually because then you go into a mode of self-preservation out of fear. The moment you react off of the animalistic nature, you are automatically cut off from the spiritual plane until you can calm yourself. Right? So that relates to that Z or the Sarat. And yeah, I hope that helps. But in terms of the Holy Tablet references, I'll have to go back and revisit that. All right, let's go on to your other question.
After performing Tafalat, I've noticed that I received some marks on my body, which kind of like startled me because there's no information on how to go forward once you start getting in depth with communicating with the other beings. And me personally, I've been on different planets, crafts. From one particular craft was in the shape of a rock with 7 tiers or 6 tiers in the 7th tier with the cockpit or the control room of these elders. And the glass was thick, like 3 feet thick. And we're traveling on a planet where we could see like the star road or a path through the stars and the other planets. And when the craft would, and it would, you know, when you walk off of the craft, you'd be on like a black disc. And it would be like you would have to move that disc with your mind. You can't really communicate as we communicate here. It's more like a thought or, you know, telepathy. Other beings, reptoid. And I like to say this, it's interesting to know that a lot of people see the depictions of the pharaohs with that headdress on and Kemet, or Egypt as we say, not knowing that in the other realm, they actually, that's how they actually look like. Their heads are shaped like cobras. They don't really look like how the artist or whoever created these statues in Egypt look. That was probably the best way they could describe or etch it, carve it out. But when you're on the other side, that's just how the beings look. They're actually like a snake. Their head is actually like the hood of a cobra, constantly like that. Their whole head is like that. and the eyes are solid black. Okay, but I've seen those beings. But let me show you the marks that I received after performing Tafu. So this is one shoulder. Let's see if we get a good look at that. And this is the other shoulder. And once I received these marks, I was able to see or communicate a little better, when people would be passing up, premonitions had a strong premonition of COVID-19 to the point where I was very emotional about what was about to happen, but didn't know who to contact. I had a desire in my heart to contact the World Health Department, but, at the time it was a task for me to figure out how would I go about doing that. I've had experiences of teleporting. I just wanted to ask, is there any information on how far should you take it before? Because, it's kind of like, with Baba Yum being locked up, and I've driven to Brooklyn to ask the people at the temple, All Eyes on Egypt, if they have any suggestions on when do you pump the brakes or do you hit the gas, on this process, because it's very interesting, but at the same time alarming, because if you don't really know what to expect when traveling that road, should you just keep hitting gas or get some type of clarity? So that's what I'm choosing to do, is try to get some clarity on how far to take this, this journey, not knowing what could be next. And it's not really specified, as I was saying in question 2, on how to travel that Z-Walk or whatever, if you recall this. But yeah, any information to be useful, or if you have seen anybody with these markings, let me know. All right, Wadu.
Okay, so this is what we're saying in Wu-Sabat. The knowledge goes deep, and different people have different experiences in terms of markings and personal experiences. Those are really for you. However, I already explained that you have entities that exist on the different realms or dimensions, and some of them can affect you from the other side by giving you marks, etc. It could be ancestors trying to communicate with you. You can have actual experiences in your being in other dimensions that give you physical reactions, like nocturnal emissions, for example. That's something real, because how are you able to, in your so-called sleep, have a physical emission? Also, when we're dealing with extraterrestrials and these beings, we keep explaining that some of these beings are light years ahead in terms of the technology and their advancement. They can actually snatch you, do things to you, abduct you, put marks on you, put devices in you, chips in you, and put you right back, and you won't even know. Literally, they can stop time, take you, because they operate in between what you call rest. So, we use seconds, right? And seconds, now we have mainly digital clocks, but if you think of an analog clock that is going tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, the master teacher, Panda Babyanun, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, explained to us that what's happening to the space between the tick and the tock, because that's not being accounted for. But beings are able to move in and out of that time that is not being, for lack of a better word, being measured, but it's there. So these beings have the technology, the ability to take you light years away in seconds and bring you back and stop your environment in terms of you. Many people who have been abducted, they tell you about a sense of losing time. They may be driving down the road and it's Monday. And then when they come back and they're placed in the same vehicle, for example, they're like, when they go home, they're like, I thought today was Monday, and it may be like a week later or days later. So in terms of your experience and traveling interdimensionally, astral projecting, many of us are being awakened and being given back knowledge and information that we wake up and we're starting to experience these things. So don't be surprised, but at the same time, it's your personal experience, and I can't speak on that. But like the technology and the things you described in where you travel to, the crafts, etc., you're talking about a cosmos of billions and billions of different civilizations. Like I read the excerpt from The Man from Planet Risk where he's explaining about when they're, using technology such as blast electricity and Omicron and things that are now being discovered, but for beings that are millions and millions in advance of humans, the things you described are just possible, But finally, going to Brooklyn and or going to any of our communities, you have to remember we live in a world where, I'm not saying you, but there are people that have mental health challenges, people that experience things that when they speak about, other people will be like, not sure how to take you. Are you someone who's suffering from mental challenges? Are you on psychedelics? Are you on drugs? And it takes time for people to get to know someone to see if they're all there, if their head is screwed on, or, it's just, some people just fantasize a lot. They're delusional. There's all kinds of things. So what I'm saying is, we keep telling people to be a part of the family. None of the things you're speaking about are crazy to us, or some things people experience, others have also experienced. So it's not like, you're going cuckoo. Or so what I'm saying is, get to know the family, get to be there, get involved, get to help, and some information that's going to explain and deal with certain things about what's going to happen and what we're doing, and it's not going to be divulged on public platforms. When people get to know you and know that you're not a fleet, you're not passing through, you just turn up now and again, but you're actually helping, being a part, then they gain trust and get to know you, and certain information might be, shared with you. Ultimately, you have to be in the community to get the information and the updates and the things that are preparing us, not only to transform ourselves, but to know what to do and when to do it, and to ultimately be in the presence of the master teacher, Partner Babyanun, who is able to take it further and help you on an individual basis, right, in ways that only he can do. So yes, I'm not sure if there was really a question in there, but how you take it is to become a part of the family, let people know you, be productive, so you can be groomed and know where to go from here. All right. But I want to appreciate you for your questions, and anyone else who has questions questions that are baffling you or you've had for years that no one else can answer, we're here to answer those questions for you, because we say ask us anything. And OSM, our souls matter, because that's the one thing you have that nobody can take away from you, unless they trick you out of it, or unless you give it to them intentionally, or unless you do things that lose it, or that you do things to yourself to harm yourself and end up losing it. It's so powerful because it connects you to the higher self and to other parts of you that work in unison or work together to give you that power to be that supreme being. Remember, the master teacher is a supreme being, and he knows how to transform you into one. So the best thing to do is study what he's teaching, and most of all, put it into practice. People avoid the basic stuff like come together, work together, and then you will know more. But they don't want that. They jump straight to the more complex stuff and want to be a loner on the outside and try and do it all by themselves. And that's not the way to go. All right. So come closer, family. Come, let's unite. All right. Under love and unity. Ashuk, ashuk, ashuk. Wu Wadu. Until the next time, I'm Saken Wadu.